Hey vinyl community, I just thought I'd come and say hello. I don't know if you've noticed, but 2020's been a bit of a dick right now. The world's gone crazy, and yeah, there's nothing I can really say that you don't already know other than I hope you're well, I hope you're safe, and yeah, what can you say really? Anyway, I'll try and move it along and kind of take your mind off the world and think about fun things such as record collecting and music and just having a good time. So yeah, I've had some great finds recently, some varied finds. I've still been going through my auction finds, which I showed you last time. There's so many albums, so much random stuff from like Neil Diamond to Tom Jones to like Bob Dylan and obscure jazz. It's really random, the mix. God knows who it was that owned this collection, but it's all like in mint condition, and it's been fun really, just exploring music. You know, not albums I particularly would buy normally in some cases, but I've had fun trying them out. And I thought I'd show you what I've been listening to, some new pickups, and yeah, first one. I've shown this one before on Instagram, but I don't think I've shown this one on video, so I think I'll show it for you now. Dave Evans, The Words in Between. It's an original copy on Village Thing Records. Village Thing were based in Gloucester, a county near, well, I live in Bristol, and Gloucester's right near Bristol, and this label was actually kind of based around the Bristol folk scene at that time. I believe Dave Evans moved to Bristol, and they basically started out in Clifton, and they were wanting to think of a name for a record label, and they thought, well, what's popular right now, and that's Greenwich Village in America. That's kind of like the mecca of the folk scene in those days, and they thought, well, what can we do that's similar? And then they thought, well, the Village Thing, and they were kind of based around Clifton area, and they kind of nicknamed it Clifton Village. I think that's probably where they got the inspiration to kind of call their label that as well. And it's funny because now people refer to that area as Clifton Village, and it's like a really posh area now, with like where all the millionaires live basically. And this little kind of folk scene was based around that area back in the day. It's quite different now, but lovely area. You know, I like to go around the charity shops around there sometimes because you'll find good stuff. But yeah, anyway, this album is just an absolute lost gem really. It's been reissued recently with a different cover. I think they used the back cover for the reissue because I guess they thought that looked more of an intriguing cover for people nowadays. But that to me, as soon as you see that and you know your record collection, you think, oh, that looks interesting. But this is one of those albums that's just really, really, really good. Beautiful folk, lovely singer, great guitar player, really good guitar player. Just a magical album to me. If you don't know this album, you like folk stuff like Bert Jansch or John Renbourn, and that whole UK folk scene, and have never tried this album out, I urge you to try it because it's really beautiful. Very talented guy. I'm not quite sure what happened to him. I think he plays now and then, maybe even locally. I need to really look into that because if he's based in this area, if I can see him somehow, then obviously I'd love to. But just a beautiful album. There's a female backing vocalist on some tracks. Little flourishes in the background. Doesn't overwhelm the song. Just really adds to it, and it's really beautiful. It's just one of those albums where, like the first track on this, The Words in Between, which is the title of the album as well. That is one of those songs, like, I don't know if it has been, but it could be like used in like an advert, you know, for like Sony or a car or something. It's that one of those kind of like you know they did with Ashley Bunyan when they used her in, I can't remember what it was now, one of those adverts. Just one of those songs you could hear like becoming popular again. It's just classic. It's really beautiful. Even if you hear that one song, within 10 seconds, if you like folk music, I think you'll be just loving it really, because the moment I heard this album, I was like, oh my God, this is great. And it's quite rare, original copies. Luckily, like I say, I live in Bristol, so I've seen a few about. They're always expensive, like £70-80, sometimes more. I got this for £18 because the condition isn't perfect, but you know what? It plays perfectly. As with a lot of albums, you know, they look battered, but they play fine. So I got this for an absolute bargain and I love it, so yeah, check it out. Next one I got some really good jazz finds for cheap recently. Sam Rivers with Hughes. This is a live album from 1973. Sam Rivers was a saxophonist and a multi-instrumentalist. He could play the flute, piano, bass clarinet, I think, as well. This is a great, really, really cool album. If you're into like your avant-garde type jazz, your free jazz, funky jazz, check this one out if you never have. I'm not sure if it's ever been reissued, but I think you can get it for a reasonable price. I didn't pay much for it, but it's really cool. It starts off kind of really funky and then gets a bit more like avant-garde as it goes along, but as soon as you put the needle down on this one, man, I was like, wow, this is really cool. So yeah, check it out. He plays a lot of flute on this one. It's really beautiful. Just one of those really cool 70s albums. If you're into this kind of thing, you can pretty much tell from the cover that this is a pretty cool album. I mean, look at that. So yeah, check it out. Next one. This was a great find. Now, there's a shop by me that sells 2 albums for £5, you know, the cheap bins. It's normally like wrecked copies of like 10cc and, you know, your average kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with 10cc, but you know what I mean, like just cheaper albums. And they're normally always scratched. But there was 2 jazz albums in there this time, and this was one of them. And I couldn't believe it because this is an original American copy in mono. And it looks a bit scratched up and the sleeve is a bit split, but with these bomb-proof original 60s pressings, they sound great. You know, it looks like it's been dragged across a floor, but it sounds perfect. I couldn't believe how good it sounded. Just beautiful. Teddy Edwards, Howard McGhee, wonderful, wonderful stuff. So who have we got here? So obviously Teddy on tenor sax, Howard on trumpet. Now, I love Howard. I'm fairly new to him, but I really like his playing, his tone. Reminds me a bit of Miles Davis. Nothing wrong with that, you know, not 100% copying him. He's got his own flavour, his own style, but I can definitely hear Miles in there, which is not a bad thing, as I said. I like the saxophone playing as well, lovely. Phineas Newborn Jr. on piano, I know him. Ray Brown on bass and Egg Thigpen on drums. So a good lineup there. Not essential, but if you're into jazz, a very good one. A really nice listen. So for £2.50 essentially, what a bargain. And then this is my other one I found. Shelley Man and His Men at the Black Hawk 3. I believe there's a few volumes of this. This is volume 3. I think there's 4 volumes maybe. But this is great as well. I think this is 1960. Great shot there. Shelley Man was the drummer. I believe Shelley Man had his own club, I think, as well. The Manhole, is that right? But who's on this then? We've got Shelley Man, Joe Gordon on trumpet, Richie Kamuka on tenor sax, I don't know if that's how you say his name, Victor Feldman on piano, and Monty Budwig on bass. So I don't know all of those people, but they play well. I really enjoyed this one. This is a nice listen for cheap. If you find it, pick it up. This was a fun one. Like I said in my previous video, I got basically an instant Chris Barber collection. Chris Barber was an English trombonist, and basically trad jazz, upbeat, fun kind of New Orleans, traditional style jazz. You can definitely tell they're white, in my opinion. It doesn't quite swing like a black band, but still great, fantastic. If you're into trad jazz, you like a bit of that kind of fun, old school, traditional New Orleans style jazz, and you don't know Chris Barber. Apparently he was very big back in the day here in the 50s and 60s, until modern jazz took over, I guess. But yeah, very fun. Just one of those albums when you're in the right mood. I have to be in the right mood for trad jazz. I do love it, but like anything, you have to be in the right mood. And I really enjoyed it. And there's about 10 other albums and about 5 other EPs and singles to go through. So I'll be working my way through his catalogue slowly here and there. Fun stuff. So yeah, you can get it for nothing as well. So try out Chris Barber. Velvet Underground and Nico, 1967. Classic there. I mean, I'm sure you know this one. If you don't, you're probably not into music. I listened to it yesterday and really enjoyed it. It's been a while. I think this is like a UK second pressing, and they used the original American covers because they had loads spare apparently, because it didn't sell very well originally, which is mind-blowing now when you consider what a classic this album is. Apparently this didn't sell very well originally because people just basically, it's so ahead of its time really, they didn't get it. And perhaps it was a bit dark as well, heroin and all that stuff. But, what can you say really? A masterpiece really. Lee Reed was a genius. And just an iconic piece of art. And if you don't happen to know, these originally came with a sticker here of a banana, which you could peel off. And of course, most of the time you find these peeled off because when you were a kid, what are you going to do? But the reissues obviously have it printed, and I'd have loved to have found it with its original sticker, of course. But nevertheless, classic Andy Warhol painting there, brilliant. This is now we're into kind of just some fun, silly albums now from my auction haul, which I thought I'd show and talk about. So Tom Jones, Tom from 1970. I've always considered Tom Jones a bit cheesy. I'm sure most people do if they're seriously into music. But you know what? I really enjoyed this. Say what you want about him, but he could belt it out. He really gives it his all on this album. I feel, and he does a lot of kind of R&B tunes of the day. Pork Salad Annie, Proud Mary, which everybody did. Just a load of kind of fun, upbeat R&B style tunes of the day. But you know what? I think he loved that music, and it really shows on this. His really nice quality sounding pressing as well on Decca. Do you know what? I listened to this on a Friday night and I was up and dancing to it. I'm not going to lie, it was fun. I'm not sure if I'll keep it, but maybe I will. It's kind of kitsch fun, but he could sing. I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. So I've got about 100 more of his albums in this auction collection, so maybe I'll work my way through them. We'll see. The High Society soundtrack. We have Bing Crosby, Grace Kelly and Frank Sinatra. This one's always on at Christmas here. A classic film and a lovely soundtrack. Louis Armstrong's in the film. If you've never seen it, check it out. Lovely stuff. Well, Did You Ever? That's a classic song. I've got that on 78 actually. And I'm meaning to do a video on my 78 collection as well, because I do listen and collect and listen to 78s as well. So that'll be a fun one to do. Just a load of fun tracks there. Nothing obscure and rare and cool maybe, but I enjoy it and I love all these people. So a fun one. Perfect condition, as most of my auction haul albums were. This is from the 50s. Think about that. What this has survived all that time in perfect condition is kind of crazy really, but there we go. It's been well looked after. A couple of fun ones just to cheer you up. James Galway and Henry Mancini, In the Pink. No comment. Basically the Pink Panther soundtrack. They do a few other things on here, Breakfast at Tiffany's and Baby Elephant Walk, and I've not listened to this one yet, but maybe I'll put it on to cheer me up at some point. I'll probably end up trading that away, but it's a fun one. And this one as well was another fun one at the end. Jungle Book soundtrack. How fun is that? I used to enjoy this film as a kid, and maybe I'll listen to this and see what I remember. Louis Prima does the singing, I think, on this, so that'll be kind of fun, I think. I remember I liking his voice as a kid, so that might be nice. A couple of quick singles here I'll show. Aphrodites Child, a really cool Italian single from 1970. I'm sure you probably know Aphrodites Child if you're a serious collector. Their album 666 is kind of very sought after. The English original Vertigo copies go for a fortune nowadays. I'd love to find one, but I never have, under about $1,000 now in perfect condition on the swell. I've seen a few Spaceship logo copies, which are still expensive, but one day. But anyway, it's 5 o'clock is the title track. A nice song, but not as cool as Funky Mary, which is the B-side, which is the case for a lot of bands. The B-side was the cooler track. Excuse me. And if you don't know Aphrodites Child, check out their album 666. It's more of a concept album. It's not like a satanic album. It's more of a concept. And if you don't know Aphrodites Child, we have Vangelis, legendary Vangelis, who did the Blade Runner soundtrack and Chariots of Fire and loads of really cool albums. And then you have such a random mix. Then you have Demis Roussos as the singer. So mix those two together, and have a really random concoction that actually made some amazing music. And I forget the other guy's name, but anyway, yeah, really cool. And I just love that cover, and it was only cheap, so I thought, why not, you know. And then I was going through some singles in the auction hall when this one came up. Dave, Dee Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch. There's a mouthful. Hold tight. This was used by Quentin Tarantino in his film Death Proof. This has some awesome fuzz guitar on it. If you've never heard it, check it out because it's really cool actually, and there's a really great guitar solo as well. I think for the most part this band was not that great, a bit cheesy kind of 60s pop, but a lot of bands at that time kind of experimented with the sound of the day, I guess, and they added in some fuzz guitar for good measure, and this is actually really cool. So yeah, check the track out if you don't know it. And this was a fun EP, Hank Locklin, country guitar. If you see this, Amy, this one's for you. This is just nice country, really. Lovely stuff. Just a fun one. If you like country, check him out if you don't know him. So yeah, I hope you're well. I really do hope that. And I bought a book on Zen the other day, recently, and I think I might start reading it now because you know, I'm a pretty calm person anyway, and I feel quite centered as a person because I've been through a lot in my life, and I've grown over the years a lot because I was pretty crazy when I was younger, and I've kind of done a lot of soul searching, a lot of growing really, and now I'm in a good place, an even keel, a kind of almost Zen state. I know that might sound pretentious, but that's the way I feel. But this current health situation is yeah, pretty crazy. So I wish the best for you all. I hope we get through this, and I'm sure we will. But anyway, yeah, until next time, cheers, peace.